we're very fortunate to be joined by a very special guest, Moulton Howe. She's an investigative journalist for over 40 years and also an Emmy award-winning documentary maker for A Strange Harvest. Good morning, good afternoon. How are you, Linda? It's great to speak to you. Linda, you worked at Stanford, is this correct?
I did my master's degree work at Stanford, and in 1968 I have a master's degree in communication where I made documentary films for 2 years.
Right.
And the first was with the Stanford Medical Center, and it was on a project that went on for 19 years after I left using my documentary film. The second one was my master's thesis. It was called A Picture Calculus, and it seems so amazing now. We're in 2017. That was 1967 to 68. That is when Stanford and a lot of other places for the first time were trying to get computers to analyze bombardments in the linear accelerator. It was that beginning. And when you think how far we have come, how things have evolved, it certainly applies to my life after graduating from Stanford. I married a classmate. We went to Los Angeles. We were both TV producers, had a child. My husband wanted to go to Harvard. We moved to Boston. I was hired to be their medical and science producer of a series of shows. That's where I got the Peabody for science and medical production. And then we went to Denver, and that's where I was hired to be director of special projects at the CBS station. And I had been doing for 2 years live studio programs, documentaries, news segments as a producer, writer, director, editor, and reporter in the station when it was the summer of 1979, and I was working on another production with another crew. And my audio guy had just come off of a shoot for 2020 in New York. And he said, the strangest thing is happening to cows in this country. And this was brand new, 2020. And he said, and we just came off of a shoot, Linda, and you know how you really keep after me to keep the battery packs powered. Now back then, it's hard to believe. If we didn't have a crew that kept battery packs that they wore around their bodies powered, and the cameraman and the audio guy had to work together like an umbilical cord because the sound then was in a crystal nugget and the cables hooked into the camera. So these two guys had to stay together and they had to wear these battery belts, and if you didn't have enough charged battery belts, your entire shoot could be ruined, right? This was critical. So he's saying, you know how you really stay on me about keeping the battery belts powered? He said, we're the ABC network out of New York. We're driving out to where there's dead cows, no blood, no tracks, these weird excisions. And Linda, every single time we walked up to one of these cows and we went to turn on the camera, there was no charge. And he said, you know me. I've charged those batteries.
I've had a similar experience.
Exactly, I have too. So he said, we became spooked by what was happening on this shoot, and so he's telling me. So I call ABC Network in New York. I'm director of the CBS Special Projects Unit in Denver, and asked to talk with the EP, the executive producer, on this new series, and had this fascinating discussion. And when I said to him, well, what happened to your footage? My cameraman and audio guy were talking, and they said that you shot over 100,000 feet of, then it was double system. Nobody shot over 100,000. It was too expensive. So on this animal mutilation story, they had shot over 100,000 feet. And he said, oh, we trashed it because we're now in the business of news and we never could get an answer. That was what energized me.
It's had the red rag.
To want to get to the bottom and get an answer. So from that point going forward, the fall of 79 to the spring of 80. It was 9 months, 18 hours a day work. And I will never forget the first day that I went to interview a sheriff, Tex Graves, in northern Colorado. He had been investigating animal mutilations from 1973 till his retirement in the fall of 79. But he'd been sheriff for 23 years. But he, probably as much as anybody in law enforcement, had investigated animal mutilations. And he had 266 colored Polaroids that he had taken from the sheriff's office because he had taken the photos and he wanted me to see them. And I laid them out chronologically. I was seeing most disturbing things. No blood, no tracks, a head on a steer that went down into a hole. And when I asked the sheriff how deep in the hole, he said, we measured it, it was 8 inches. So imagine you've got an animal on its right side. The legs are together in the back and the front. The head is in a hole, 8 inches. It's powder like this, just like this. And there is not a single track anywhere around the body of this deer with his head in the hole. Not even his, if he didn't walk there, where did he come from? Well, here is, and the sheriff said, Linda, we walked around, we took photographs first, because we couldn't understand what are we looking at. And he said, when we finally got up to the hole and we're measuring, the deputy looked at me and I looked at him, and we both said at the same time, something had the power to paralyze this steer, take ear, eye, tongue, jaw, genitals, and rectal tissue out of this animal with no blood whatsoever, but left the head unparalyzed. And the sheriff said, we concluded that in the agony, it had to have been feeling what was happening, even though it could not move. And at that point, when my mind went to the concept if there could be something that could paralyze a large domestic animal, have the entire body except the head totally still, that the cruelty, the implied cruelty of what I was looking at is exactly what he and I talked about. And at that moment, Sheriff Tex Graves, he leaned into me and he said, Linda, I'll save you some time. The perpetrators are creatures from outer space.
Wow. That's a bold assertion.
At that point, it was like a 220 volt circuit went through me because I was not prepared for that. But what I'm looking at was so troubling and upsetting. Now, go through the years. I have literally walked in 2 hemispheres with formalin and scalpels and containers to get tissue from mutilator cuts back to pathologists. And when you start getting forensic evidence, the hemoglobin is cooked, the collagen is cooked, that even the capillaries coming up to the skin, that the capillaries are completely empty of hemoglobin. That's not something we can do. And that you then, your mind starts moving. If they're taking the same tissues, if they are being able to control down to capillary blood, that we are dealing with technology we don't have. And that's where my work began laying out what sheriffs, what deputies, what pathologists. And when I did A Strange Harvest, it was a 90-minute special for the CBS station at night. It was like a bomb.
Not bad, yeah.
And the ratings were the highest that they have ever been at the station since. It was a 19 rating and a 37 share in Arbitron at Nielsen. It meant that our audience was going out into the states around us. And then they started dragging these gray big bags of mail to my office. Listen, remember, there's no computers. Your audience needs to understand that in 1979 to 1980, the only communication methods, a landline phone and typing or writing mail. And when you start getting huge mailbags coming in full, and you are letter after letter after letter, and they came from around the world. Word spread. I have never told anyone this before. So all these letters, and people sent illustrations, photos. I had just scratched the tip of the iceberg with A Strange Harvest. It did receive a regional Emmy. I received Emmys in other of my work, and I stayed at that station for approximately 7 years. But after A Strange Harvest was broadcast with this huge audience and received Emmy and some other awards, I got a call from the director of documentary productions at Home Box Office in New York. Said they wanted to screen A Strange Harvest, and that led to them contracting with me to do an hour for HBO. And on March 21st, in 1983, I was in New York signing a contract, and that night I had dinner with a man named Peter Gersten. He was the attorney in the United States who filed the first Freedom of Information Act request to the CIA, NRO, DIA, all of the alphabet soup, all of the military. He went to everybody because it was the new Freedom of Information Act law. And as an attorney in New York, he was, on behalf of Citizens Against UFO Secrecy, requesting all documents related to UFOs, ETs, all of the acronyms. Here's what happened. The CIA would send Gersten, the attorney, a letter that would say, I've seen these letters. The Central Intelligence Agency has no files on UFOs and ETs, but we know that the National Security Agency has 112.
They've just passed it over.
And then he'd get a letter from the National Security Agency saying, we don't have any UFO files, but we know the CIA. Oh, you should see these.
Oh dear.
So being a smart attorney, he had his case in front of him.
Yeah,
he took this all the way to the Supreme Court. And the agencies, nailing other agencies was his leverage with the court, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court in an in-camera session. They released, several of the intelligence agencies released documents, but those are the ones that were all blacked out that you've seen.
Yes, the
whole pages blacked out. Peter Gersten and Patrick Quaige, which was a friend and also a UFO researcher. We met after I had signed the contract at HBO, and he showed me letters from an Air Force Office of Special Investigations agent working at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque that was talking about the exchange of something like laser fire in 1978 at Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota. Immense detail. Security guard sees a silver disc come down on military property. The security guard pulls his gun and starts walking. A door opens on the disc. A blonde, not a gray, a blonde humanoid comes out. The security guard raises his gun, and there, whatever this instrument is, was I think it was green. It was a light, like a laser. Completely evaporates the gun in the security guard's hand, and the security guard only has surface wear.
Yeah, like no burns.
And what I understood next, that is a technology that the United States wanted.
Of course.
So now, in this box office begins what I call the long road of my investigations. into an alien presence on this planet with these kinds of technologies. Because I started on that HBO project with a meeting at Gilliland Air Force Base. Peter Gersten and I were going to work together on the Ellsworth laser problem. And this is where, in a way, I think of a paradigm shift in my own life. I'm sitting in this Air Force office of special investigation, and the guy says, my superior officers have asked me to show you a document. He reaches over with his left hand, he pulls this drawer, and pulls out a manila envelope, 8.5 by 11. He says, you can read this, you cannot take notes, and I want you to move from the chair you're sitting in to that chair. And he's pointing at a chair that is essentially in the middle of a huge office with nothing around it. I was so innocent and naive that it didn't occur to me that at that moment I'm being videotaped, which I was. So I'm looking at the several pages that he's handed, and it has all caps briefing paper for the President of the United States of America on the subject of unidentified aerial craft, IACs. And when I went to the first page, it started going back to Project Grudge and Sign and all of these things to the government. And then it got to a paragraph that said, these extraterrestrial biological entities manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create Homo sapien, and the Latin was there. And another page, it had Project Garnet, all caps, all questions and mysteries about the evolution of Homo sapien on this planet have been answered in this project.
Wow. Wow, powerful document.
Well, this was the 90-degree turn in my life.
Yeah.
Because
I can imagine.
I had been dealing with why would something be harvesting genetic material from all of these animals. So that's what I had concluded is a genetic harvest. I called my film Strange Harvest. Now I'm reading an alleged document for a president of the United States that is boldly saying more than once that we then are biological androids. We are the product of DNA manipulation by an alien presence. And I wanted to know why, who, how, and where is the alien intelligence from? Those are the questions that have driven and energized my life since 1983 to this day. Nothing has changed outside of the fact that the landscape that I have walked now seems so huge, and that it is a testimony to the complexity of the phenomenon. That you start off with maybe 3 or 4 issues that you're investigating, and today, this is no kidding. I get an average of 400 emails every single 24-hour day cycle.
Wow.
I run down these 400 through the day. Once upon a time, Miss Howe, may I call you? They were simple. Now I get in the subject line, abducted, need to talk with you about type, or doctor has confirmed an implant in my pituitary gland. And I'm not kidding, that the communication from the public since I first began in total ignorance on A Strange Harvest has gone so far. People are communicating about so many complex aspects, and that you begin to be humbled by the idea that whatever we are in, whatever cosmic, you could say theater, computer simulation, whatever we're in, it is like a 16-layer chess game. And then
very much like Star Trek, the chest came from that.
And the other part that I have learned, that was another big paradigm shift from a man who retired from the Defense Intelligence Agency in 1999. And in a 7-hour meeting with him at the wharf in Baltimore in December of 1999, was the first time that I had somebody lay out for me the concept that this is our government. One of our greatest concerns is who walks on the surface of this planet, looks human and is not. Said we use technology aimed at humans to determine what's in it. Then goes into a long discussion about geopolitical territorial conflicts on Earth for millions of years. That blondes want to annihilate reptiles, reptiles want to annihilate blondes. There are these ebens that are gray with the hair.
Races of the 5, is it?
Well, 3 is who he concentrated on. And suddenly, for the first time in my life, I was hit with, oh my God, that a Homo sapien sapien looking being does not necessarily have to be inhabited by a Homo sapien sapien. It could be the camouflage. Human bodies are being used as camouflage in an alien conflict, alien competition. That was December 1999. Today, as you and I speak, in May of 2017, Corey Good, David Wilcock, William Mills Tompkins, they have pulled this story even further, that there is ancient archaeology of bodies and artifacts on Mars. John Brandenburg, a nuclear physicist, did a presentation for NASA this past fall. They asked him to do this presentation. That in the northern hemisphere at the Cydonia region is evidence of what he calls 2 hydrogen bombs were let off in the air in order to completely annihilate surface structures, of which the Cydonia face is.
You've seen the CIA documents that were recently released as well that relate directly to that, don't they?
Hydrogen bombs. Exactly who was fighting, how long ago, leaving impacts of trinitite in the northern hemisphere of Mars. And then you come to Earth, and they are talking about 2 miles down in Lake Vostok, the same kind of archaeology that's on Mars is on our own planet. And if it's 2 miles under the ice, go to scientists who study our poles and say, when is the last time that there was no ice on Antarctica? And you will not get a definite answer, you'll get a consensus of around 13 million years ago. Yeah, and if we are right now trying to keep the world from knowing that there has been an archaeological investigation for 15 years by the United States government, and that they're actually taking artifacts out that they don't want the world to know, it's enraging. We as the human population deserve more than anything to know about anything 30 million years ago or 5 million years ago or a million years ago. Yeah, and now, the third, Antarctica, Mars, same description of archaeology, backside of the moon, independent of Corey, William Mills Tompkins, and others. I have 2 whistleblowers. And they are describing to me photographs of archaeology on the backside of the moon that have hieroglyphs that would fit into Mesopotamia.
Really? So I guess our ancient origins, where we believe civilization, the cradle civilization was born from.
Well, the Anunnaki must be the prime intelligence that's been at war with something else on Mars, that was the constructor of ziggurats and stone and the huge terraforming operations of the planet. And if the Anunnaki are extraterrestrials from another star system, which at least some of the translations are, gotta make sure I gotta go, that the translations that would say they came from Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2. If Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 are the home binary system for the Anunnaki, the first famous worldwide abduction case is Betty and Barney Hill, 1961, New Hampshire. The star map that led to the discovery of Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 being the source. So between 2017 and 1979, when I got into animal mutilations, and then you think of Betty and Barney Hill, that over that span of time we have gone from could there be any ETs mutilating animals, abducting humans, to alien archaeology, bodies, architecture, and hieroglyphics, and who knows, all on Mars, Antarctica, and the backside of the moon. And this is now a serious, big deal.
Absolutely.
And what I'm waiting for is the congressional investigation in which the head of the NSA, the CIA, the DIA, the NRO, and all of them are seated in front of people who say, how could you make decisions that would concoct this plan, that you would erase, that you would take, that you would deny people knowing about archaeology that would go back maybe to 13 million years, and Homo sapiens sapien, a standing up primate, did not occur until 2 million years ago. The world deserves this information. What could possibly be the reason to deny the truth to the planet? And that's why I do what I do. That's why I have been doing it since 1979 on this story, and that I am grateful that there is something like Contact and some of the other conference that bring us all together to talk now more honestly than anybody has ever talked about subjects that once upon a time seemed like science fiction.
Absolutely.
And this year, this is the breakthrough. This is where the public is leaving the government behind. It's happening everywhere.
Do you believe then that this was your role?
I do have to go.
You do. We've got just a minute left.
I have to get my equipment set up.
Do you believe that this was your role? Last question. Do you believe that you were destined to do this in order to bring about this kind of new paradigm, to unite people, to bring out this evidence, using your scientific background, using your, I guess, your journalistic background?
2 weeks into the investigation, with a husband, a child, cat, dog, beautiful house, gardens, I got up one morning and I said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I was boss of this department. And I remember I suddenly felt a kind of euphoria. I don't have to do this. And I got dressed and I got in the car and I went to the office and I was just happier than I had been for a long time. And my office was up on the 3rd floor of the CBS station in Denver. And I can still see. I put the key in the lock on my office door. And on the other side, I heard a phone ringing. 3 hours later, 2 or 3 conversations on the phone. And I was more committed to get to the bottom of the animal mutilations than I had been 2 weeks earlier.
Wow.
Every single time that I tried to leave animal mutilations or aliens at various points where it got too hard, the government plays very hardball. Something, I just feel like something went
back into the mold, yeah.
Exactly. So in a way, I think it is those events that occurred that answers your question. Something wouldn't allow me to get out of the investigations of animal mutilations, human abductions, alien presence, crop formations, government cover-up, and...
Linda, an absolute tour de force of your last 40 years worth of research. It's so important what it is that you do, and I'm so grateful that you chose to speak to us. Thank you very much. We will let you go because I know you're so busy as well.
Well, I have to do a workshop.
You do, you've got to do a workshop. People need to know the information, they need to know it.
That's right.
Wicked, thank you very much. Take it easy. You can hear more exclusive interviews like this on heaventoearth.com. Check it out, the fabulous Linda Moulton Howe. Asylum. I'm joined by probably the tallest speaker this week and the speaker with the best sunglasses, Mr. Brad Olsen. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Doing good. I've heard a lot of comments about my height. First time with the glasses, so...
Dude, they rock. I love them.
Good to know you like them.
So, Brad, tell us what it is that you do.
Well, I'm the author of this book, Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms, which is book 2 in the series, but this is the one that deals with UFO, ET, the cover-up, secret state, as well as a section on utopia, solutions for humanity.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a book I'm giving to you.
Yeah,
there you go, Ian.
Dude, well, I'll tell you what, considering you've given me this, and it's very gracious of you to do that, I'm going to give you my secret radio card as well for the Asylum.
Wow. Paper for paper.
Paper for paper. Yours is a lot bigger than mine, I'm not going to say. And that's probably due to your size. Anyway, Brad, tell us a little bit about your book and what's it about.
So Future Esoteric goes into the secret states first. The first section is called Secrets, and it shows how this group has been able to control the information through the fake media. They're able to use the government as a tool to compartmentalize and collect the kind of technology that they're using for their own purposes. And they're also the secret government that controls the finances and things like that. And my lecture tonight is called Everything is Fake, Top 10 Deceptions in the World. And those are a couple subjects right there I'm going to cover.
So I guess you're talking about the government is really just a front for the cabal, the same way the media is a front for the cabal in order to compartmentalize the information, to keep this sort of esoteric information for themselves so they can continue to control us. Is that correct?
That's correct. We've known for about 100 years, ever since this guy Bernays, who is the nephew of Sigmund Freud, he was the father of PR, and he came up with this notion of controlling the masses through a narrative that they dictate. And I'll pull up some slides in my lecture tonight talking about how the CIA and some of the other alphabet agencies have long used this concept of consensus reality to shape our reality, reinforced over and over and over by the media till we think it's the real truth.
Yeah.
And there's a great quote by William Colby at the first staff meeting with Ronald Reagan in 1981, and he said, CIA director, "We'll know our disinformation programs are successful when everything the American public believes is false."
Yes. Do you think we're at a stage where that's the
We're
case
in
now?
that stage.
Yeah.
I mean, we're 30 some years beyond that, and
Yeah.
you can see it happening all around us. You're not getting the truth on many of the vital subjects that really are important to humanity.
No, it's incredible, isn't it? Because I know a stat that says that 90% of all people get all of the information they receive from the media.
Right.
So if that's the case and they're giving you misinformation, then how do we actually ascertain what the truth is? Is it coming to places like Contact in the Desert, listening to people like yourself, doing our own research, or maybe just, you know, trying to fight the power and speak truth to power and maybe get that information out? How do we do it?
Well, all the above, but I'm also a believer in nonviolent revolution along the lines of Gandhi and Martin Luther King.
Yes.
And this is how we have to do it. We're not going to go out on the streets and fight them street fighting man like the Stones say. You're going to get slaughtered if you do that. We're going to fight them with our consciousness, because the pen is mightier than the sword.
Yeah.
And we're going to defeat them because we know that what they're up to, and we're going to shine a spotlight on their activities, and they absolutely hate that. They love to work in the shadows, in the darkness, and when we start coming out with books and doing talks about how they pull this over our eyes, then we start understanding what they're all about, and their power diminishes each time.
Is there a war then on for consciousness? Is there a war for our freedom? Is it about us as a group coming together and really unifying, and then basically providing, just by sheer volume of numbers, the same way you mentioned Gandhi led, you know, like 370 million people to freedom, I believe it was, on a non-violent path, by believing in an idea? Is that how we do this?
It's absolutely how we do it. In fact, it's the only way we do this.
It's got to be.
We can't bring ourselves to their level or we become one of them.
Now these guys own all the resources, they own all the weapons,
Yep.
they own the control of information, they own the control of our governments, of our democracy, of the way in which we operate. So the only way truly, surely, is to unite as a group of people and bring forward this information, which is what you're doing this week.
That's right. We can call them the global elite, we can call the cabal, we can call them the Illuminati. They're the same thing by any name. They control everything, the corporations, the energy, the printing of our money, the secret space program. They are the ones, and in the book Future Esoteric I just gave you, I'll show you, there's a study I quote from that the Swiss did a few years ago that just follows the money. Who owns the stockholders majority in some of the biggest companies? Who are those board of directors? How many are there? 146.
Wow.
That's how many people it takes to own 80% of the resources on this planet.
Wow.
At least the big corporations, that make a difference, that tell us the media story, that run the financial institutions, run the big aerospace, the military industrial complex. It's all gotten to this stage where it's so bloated, so big, and I would say so dangerous that we have nothing else to do but resist it, because it has become just this monolithic power and force, and what they have in mind for humanity is, let's just say, not in our best interest.
So why are they doing this? You say it's not in our best interest. What are they doing this for? Are they trying to contain all the resources, turn us into slaves? Are they using ET technology, let's say, to try and separate themselves from humanity and to move on into the cosmos? Why are they doing this? Why do they need this information?
Well, a lot of people would say, oh, they're doing it to make more money. Well, they got all the money.
Yeah.
They got that. Yeah. They got the control of the corporation. I think what they're doing it for is they're totally addicted. They're drunk, alcoholic on power.
Yes.
And that's all they want, and they want to keep it that way. That's why they're creating these disinformation programs to throw us down false avenues so we don't figure them out. They're putting all the tricks in the book out there just to keep us off their trail, but it's a little bit too late because we're starting to figure out what they do. And they're the kind of people that are hidden in plain sight. You may have heard this site in Georgia called the Georgia Guidestones. And the number one tenet is they want to have humanity
under 500,000 people.
500 million people,
yeah.
And there's 7 billion of us. So then what happens to the other 6.5 billion of us? Well, there is a very dark plan, and I'm going to talk about it in my lecture tonight. Everything is fake because they're chemtrailing our skies, they're poisoning us with GMOs, they're putting fluoride in our water, they're not coming clean on vaccines, they're doing everything they can to make us sick. And in this country, just this year, the life expectancy just dropped 8 years. Wow. That shouldn't be happening. We should be getting stronger, better, eating well, taking care of ourselves. Instead, we're dropping dead at a younger rate than ever before. So something is totally amiss.
So you think it's a multifaceted approach then in order to dull down, I guess, humanity as a whole, maybe our vibration, maybe our energies, the way we operate? I mean, we're born into almost a life of slavery, aren't we? You know, it's and when you look back at slavery, I guess in terms of slavery, you could control a person's flesh, but you could never control their mind. But what they do nowadays in modern society is they actually control our mind by saying, this is who you are, this is what you want to buy, this is the person you want to be. You're born into that life of slavery, i.e. you have to have a mortgage, you have to have a job, you have to have a car, you know, you have to do all these things. How do we break free from those controls? You know, how do we, like say, we unite as a group of people, we spread this information and this knowledge?
And I always say knowledge is power. And that's why I think it's so vitally important that people come to conventions like Contacting the Desert, read books that can break it down for you in such a way that you can see what's going on and make the changes in your life to help yourself out, to live longer. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this talk tonight, because I feel this is very vital information that people need to know to live a better life, or at least be aware of what's going on to them. They have a right to know.
Do you think we can turn the tide with just sheer force of will? With the
amount of
people behind? I love it, we will. It's not we can or we could, it's we will, and I love that kind of that assertiveness, you know?
It's either that or we're going down a very dark path.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about a depopulation agenda where most of us are gone. The Agenda 21, which is now Agenda 2030.
Wow.
So they have plans to implement a lot of these things. They would like to microchip all of us. They would like to get rid of cash currency.
Yep.
That's another mode of control.
Yep.
And we just have to resist. We have to be the nonviolent resistors. And you said it yourself, Gandhi was able to move a nation of 350 million people, create the state of India, all through nonviolent resistance, and we can do the same now.
Yes, I love that kind of power, and I love that kind
High five.
Yes, dude. I love that kind of, you know, because it comes across, you're passionate, you're committed about this subject, and it's about changing people's lives, about changing the paradigm and the world in which we live to make a better and more beautiful planet as well. Brad, tell us a little bit about some of the other books that you've done. I know you've got some really fascinating research.
So in my capacity as a publisher, I have a 5-book deal with Leo Lion-Zagami, and he is an Italian bloodline family whistleblower, comes out of the highest degrees of Freemasonry, out of the OTO, out of the secret societies, and they basically threw him in a psych ward in Norway a few years ago, and he was very upset. And about 10 years ago, he came out with his Confessions website. It was like an internet sensation. He got some book deals in Italy and also Japan, where he's a household name, and he needed to get in the English language. So through our mutual friend Sean Stone, who does the Buzzsaw TV show, which both of us have been on, and son of Oliver Stone, he put us together, and I got the contract to do his 5 books, which is The Last Pope was the first book, and then we did Confession of an Illuminati, volume 1, 2, and 3, and the last book is going to be The Invisible Master.
Ooh.
And that should be very profound, because that also ties into my research that it is this malevolent alien control group who is using these top humans, these 146, for their nefarious purposes. That's why it's more than just a depopulation agenda, it's an anti-human depopulation agenda, because in the grand scheme of things, these are not even humans anymore that are running this planet. So we need to reclaim our sovereignty, declare this planet, at least the surface, belonging to the human race, and all these other people can just peace off.
Peace off.
As an Aussie would say.
Do they consider us to be a threat? Are we too violent? Are there too many of us?
And there's too many awakened of us. And that is what they fear more than anything of all, is when we awaken and we rise to the point where we can say, that's the person and that's where he lives, they're shaking in their boots. And according to my author Leo Lion-Zagami in his book Confessions of an Illuminati Volume 2, he says they need to get this whole New World Order structure up and running by 2020. Well, that's only 3 years away. And if they don't, they know that the game is over and they're toast. So everything is accelerating right now.
I was going to say this because you mentioned Agenda 2030, was it, something like this? Is because of this awakening, this, let's say, this control, this destruction of humanity, is it speeding up in order to get through before too many people become awakened?
Absolutely. That's why we have a decreasing life expectancy in North America right now. That's why you have all these mysterious diseases popping up out of everywhere. That's why you have viruses that come out of nowhere, and some of them have the hallmark of coming out of Fort Detrick, Maryland, which is
absolutely
doing bio experiments and releasing these for these purposes. They know not what they do, the humans in these laboratories, the My Labs that are doing experiments on people. They're actually working for the Invisible Master. And once the Invisible Master is exposed, this is the Archon network. This goes back to the Gnostics and very ancient wisdom that called them out. Even the South American and Central Americans knew. Carlos Castaneda talked about the Archons as well. These are the invisible forces that feed off our energy, our negative energy. They actually have a word for it. It's called noosh. And they love it when we fight each other because our auras become black, and it is this energy that they feed on.
Divide and conquer.
That's right. And if you change your disposition to be one of a loving nature in service to others, you're the anti-Archon, and that's the best thing you can do to defeat them.
Love it. I love your energy, Brad. Let's change the world with positivity, my friend.
I'm with you, my man.
Definitely. You can see more brilliant speakers like this at Contact in the Desert, and you can also find some of these exceptional speakers as well on cruises around Croatia with heaven2earth.com. Brad, thanks very much for speaking to you, and I'm going to go catch this talk later on because it sounds absolutely fascinating, bud. That was really cool.
All right, we'll see you guys in the crowd right here at 7 p.m.
Wicked. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Asylum.
Welcome back then to Contact in the Desert, day 4. It's me, Gunnar, joining heaventoearth.com, of course, where you can have exclusive cruises, I should say, around Croatia. We're joined by Mark. Good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon.
Mark, so you've been doing a little bit of stuff with Michael Tellinger, but you have your own individual sort of processes and programs going on. Tell us about those.
I'm one of a team of 4 partners in Seattle, and we're essentially a technology incubator, specifically aligned with shifting the paradigm away from oil dependency and sustainable technologies. We all collectively believe that energy and air and water should be free and available.
Absolutely.
We want to try and remove these from the sort of slavery dependency paradigm that we're in. And we have a whole number of solutions available. We vet, we seek out, we vet the kind of garage inventors, the guys at home tinkering.
Brilliant.
And it can be a tedious process. It's a very exciting process. And over the years, we've visited, hundreds of different inventors, and we look at all kinds of technologies from magnetic motors to cold fusion.
Wow.
And there's circumstances where I've seen and worked with some cold fusion solutions on a bench, and we have a guy in Washington, for example, and it's just stunning.
There's a few people who are getting close now, isn't there, to cold fusion? I know the Germans kind of ran something out a couple of months ago. I think the Brits have just done something as well. How close are we to a technology like cold fusion? How can it change our future?
Oh, it'll change everything. Technologically, it could change everything, and it will inevitably, and we're certainly moving in that direction. It's not clear to me yet what approach, what methodology of energy extraction we will sort of, when the dust settles, what's going to be, sticking out of the sand, as it were. I'm not a huge proponent for cold fusion necessarily. There's all sorts of complexities, including political, around it. It's got a lot of baggage as a concept, and within that inherently meets lots of challenges, both technically, politically, and so on. Although the principle and the theory is sound, and it appears like a shining bright way to go.
Yeah.
But we have, as a team, we've been supporting a German inventor, Marcus Reed, out of Munich. So he developed a crystal cell technology, and there's a number of people doing that. But he's had his cells running for 20 years, and what makes this approach different, and I'll talk about this one first, because for me it's actually one of the ultimate solutions to solve the challenge. Maybe we should start from the top and work backwards, because talking about the solution, because well, you see, that helps you filter out and align your energy and resources, and you've got to keep that in line with the ultimate solution, because as we go and see lots of inventors, we try to evaluate, then replicate in our lab.
Scientific process.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got a small lab in Seattle, so we try and replicate and validate what they're doing. What I loved about Marx's work is, first of all, the principle is a solid state device, no moving parts, and I think that's kind of important, because you run into maintenance, and then again you've got subscription to some entity that keeps the thing running for you, so you can have that free flow of energy. So we try and stay away, or my focus is to stay away from moving parts. Love magnetic motors, and we do have a few solutions, and as you know, there's many around.
Professor John Searle actually about his SEG.
Yes, well, I know John, and I'm personally invested in his company, and I think those principles are amazing. But of course, that opens up a Pandora's box of all kinds of other physics, plasma physics and interactions with the environment when it gets cold and it changes material states and all sorts of stuff. So that is a very fascinating approach, and certainly in the principle of high-speed shearing fields, magnetic fields, is part of the key, one of the keys to the solution. So I love that work. There's, as I'm sure you know, there's sort of political shifts, and there's a lot of, and I don't understand the complexities of the shifting in the sands that goes on in the Searle community, which I don't try not to get involved with, because I think to achieve great results we need to be greatly focused, and so even though I support and have invested in those many years ago when they started, as I'm explaining on the other track, I have other visions of how this could be. Again, John's is moving parts, but the beauty of that is that you've got that the parts are suspended, feel suspended, so you don't have the wear component, which is obviously the motion issue. So back to Marcus's stuff, the solid state. We've had cells, or Marcus had cells that's running for 20 years and outputting power, 1 milliwatt of power, which is not insignificant.
Yeah.
And in fact, when we look at the power density and provision graphs over time, his cells have been producing, they far outperform lithium iron phosphate batteries and the best technologies we've got in the long term. However, that in the real world that doesn't really count. It's just a statistical snobbery almost. But the beauty of that is that it is continuous and it's not going to run down. And we've got the same power out coming now that we had 20 years ago, sort of thing.
So are you telling me I could have a mobile phone that I'd never need to charge again?
Love where you're going with that. And we are going to get there.
Who in the world doesn't want a mobile phone that doesn't run out after 12 hours? Or 3 in my case.
Well, this is where this technology is going. And I'll explain it a little bit further. But yes, our vision's coming back to the top and working backwards. Let's get excited about the prospect. Yeah, your phone. I mean, ultimately, the solution, as it comes to fruition and manifestation, will completely redesign our relationship with the supply and provision of electricity. Because the technology, we're working at nano level with some exotic, well actually they're rare earth materials, they're not that exotic, but there's combinations and characteristics which materials exhibit when you tickle them in the right place. And you treat life, like engineering, is all about relationships. I don't know if you read the book of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
No, I haven't.
Years ago.
I'll go and check it out.
Well, you know, that brings us back into the spiritual concept of this movement and how it evolves, which is very important too. Because as we're evolving in all of this, it's all you've got to raise the game on all levels. The spiritual, the mental, societal, economic. It's all part of the big picture. And I don't think it's going to be a sustainable evolution if any one sort of goes too far ahead of the others, because there's always something in one region. It's like a harmony in an orchestra.
Yeah, absolutely.
You all play together in harmony,
and that's
sense. The same for all our characteristics at all levels, right? And the energetics and so on. So I'll come back to the technology in a minute and to some degree how it works. And we've written a couple of books. I edited Marcus's second book on it, and it's available. QuantumPowerMunich.com, and it's called Virtual Particles in Electromagnetism.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So we're Marcus's, and this is what makes him, for me and our team, stand out above a lot of the other inventors, because he's got a much deeper vision of the principles and he's written theory to support the development of the technology.
Right.
And for me that's very important, because the theory and the deeper understanding and also the vision will carry the technology into much more holistic places than just, boom, there's a bit of hardware, let's fix that problem, there's a band-aid, there's a plaster. Well, yes, but we know historically that when you just chuck stuff into the fire like that, it has its own karma and destiny.
Its own challenges, its own pitfalls and different journeys. It's almost Tesla-esque, isn't it, this, in some ways? You kind of just vision it, draw it, and it works.
Yes, it is. No. Well, I thought you were referring to the fact that, you know, Tesla was tapping into the ether.
I was going to come to that one. That's why I just dropped that little Tesla segue in there.
There we go. There's the quantum vacuum. Can't avoid it, you know. It's not there, but you still trip over it. So that's a supremely important point, because really with a sustainable solution, we, in my opinion, we have to be tapping into the all-pervasive etheric quantum vacuum.
Yeah. You know. I believe that energy pervades the universe in the same way that salt does in the sea, and I believe that it pervades us in the same way. I believe that, you know, does a fish swimming along in the sea know that it's full of salt? I don't think it does, and I don't think it's aware that the sea's full of salt, and I think we're exactly the same. I think we can't perceive it, but it's there, it's all around us, it's within us, within everything else, it's all around us as well. But it's, as Tesla was trying to do with the Wardenclyffe Tower, it's how do we tap into that and bring that free energy? And more to the point, and I'm guessing you're feeling this as well in some of the work that you do, governments and control, you know. People are not going to want to see this energy out there, are they, potentially? Or are there going to be pitfalls surrounding this because people are going to want to maintain control, maintain, you know, a cost on this stuff that they can actually put it, because we're talking about energy independence here. We're talking about freedom from these things. Freedom!
Yeah, we totally are, and this is, but also, as I said earlier, it's got to be woven in to the evolution of us as a species, mentally, politically, sociologically. It's all interwoven because, as I say, it's a rubber band, and if one goes ahead,
I agree.
You've got all this. So when you say the people, I think we have to, these days, we have to define that a little better, because I don't think it fits in such a broad term, because we know that us people, which is part of the people, are actually evolving and moving forward ideologically and philosophically and theologically, you know what I mean?
I can't say it either, so we'll just skip that bit.
It's a Monday morning. So the technology, the principle is that the ultimate solution, apart from the sort of socio-ecological and the financial constraints, needs to be embedded in everything that requires electrical power.
Yeah.
So we need to circumvent the whole generation and distribution principle that is fundamental to our current paradigm.
Yeah.
And the pinnacle, I think, however you think about that, it's always going to take you to a distributed architecture where everything is, if you like, from a technological standpoint, becomes a sovereign piece of technology. You know, it's self-supporting, self-sustaining, and it runs forever.
Yeah.
It doesn't need you for it to operate.
So you're talking about unwriting the grid in many ways that Tesla created, I guess, with his AC power. Is power now going to become much more free and easy? We're going to be able to create it ourselves, share it amongst ourselves, take it with us wherever we go, bring it back, and have it ready on hand whenever we want.
Yes. You don't need to give it to anybody,
because they'll have their own.
It will be, and I swear to you, as I feel this really deeply, and it resonates with me, and we'll come back to resonance and relationship, that when the source of the electricity required for any particular item of equipment is embedded within the system itself, we won't need cables.
Yeah.
Imagine travelling, you know, you're going to be £5 lighter on your cases,
imagine,
right?
The amount of cables.
A couple more t-shirts, wow. More socks, my wife will be delighted. So you know, you would be able to go out in the desert and you'll have power for your laptop. You'll never have to plug. If this solution that we have now in the lab comes to fruition, which is extremely likely, and nothing's guaranteed, so I always hesitate from the definite definition, then I here suggest to you that in 5 years' time, a solution will be available whereby you can forget cables, you can forget plug sockets in the walls. Wiring in buildings will be a thing of the past. You won't need the Tesla charging stations. It's a lovely stepping stone to completely support and admire it, but it'll be unnecessary, it'll be obsolete anyway.
So it would be, say, inbuilt in the laptop in the desert, you'd open it up, press start, and it would start drawing energy from the ether, so to speak.
Exactly.
Dude, that is phenomenal.
So it's based on the principle, and back to relationship. Relationship, for me, is the fundamental key to all things macro and micro scales.
Yeah.
Everything's about relationship, and what we need to do in terms of finding solutions and overcoming issues is find out, okay, what the first question should be, what is the harmonious relationship, optimal, between these two systems, whether it's electronic, mechanical, people. There needs to be a harmonic resonance to draw the best characteristics out of anything. Because from that principle there, you've got solid foundations of harmony on which everything else can grow, and abundance and all frills.
Absolutely.
So
it's like electrical engineering with spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really cool.
Exactly, and that's why these fundamental principles do carry through.
Yeah.
Whether it's technology or interpersonal relationships or with yourself. You know, I mean, a lot of disease and so on comes from discordance, disharmony,
Absolutely. We've been talking about it just this weekend.
Right. So there you go. It's a principle that's sound through all levels of inquiry. So yeah, it does mean that everything will be powered independently. The appliances you're going to buy at home will have their own power source.
That's
so you can stick your washing machine in your bedroom if you want.
I can't imagine sleeping too much.
Take your TV out in the garden,
yeah.
by the swimming pool, you know, whatever you want to do. No cables, forget plugging it in. Go and have a party in the desert. No generators, no backup power supplies, and no grid.
Wow, energy liberation.
Energy liberation, that's a beautiful way of putting it.
Thank you.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, you can pay me something for that later. No, but it is, it's like energy liberation. We're freeing ourselves from the corporations, we're freeing ourselves from the control structure, we're freeing ourselves from the dictation, we're freeing ourselves financially and spiritually and emotionally from all of these things.
Partially financially.
Partially
it's a good start.
Yeah, it's a really good start.
I mean, a significant part of your wage and your income does go to energy to supply, maintain and support your environment, right?
But that is an incredible piece of technology. What are the things you're doing then that are much more day to day? You kind of, because I'm guessing you're not just looking at, you know, these big ideas and these big adventures in that sense. What are you doing about things like, let's say, graphene, solar panels, wind, water, you know, those kind of different technologies, biofuels and stuff like that? Are you looking into those?
No.
Because you don't need to.
Don't need to.
Wow.
They're all stepping stones. You know, wind is beautiful, solar's beautiful, they're partial systems, you've still got to store the energy. Okay, so here's another issue that I think in the ultimate principle has to be, it's not a part of the vision of the final solution. Storage of energy, why? It's available, we're swimming in it.
It's being stored all around us.
Right, back to your fish analogy. Part of the principle of the theory of the technology we're developing is that, like the fish, and you're swimming in the water, you don't know your water, blah, blah, blah. And the fish comes across an iceberg in the sea. The iceberg is water. It's the same stuff that's in him, through him, and he supports him and so on. What it is a different level of condensation of matter. Yeah. But it's the same stuff. And so and so it is with the energy that we're swimming in. The quantum vacuum, the fluctuations, it's so dense, as you know. So we're not aware of it, we're swimming in it, and depending on who you talk to, you get explanations of how the quantum vacuum and the etheric source of energy is actually feeding us now. You know, it's a part of our biological, we are a manifestation of that energy through various processes, right? So it's the same with the electrical energy. And back to relationships, it's all about having a harmonious relationship. So what we're doing here is creating a resonant coupled relationship with the fluctuations of the quantum vacuum. And in stage 1, which I can tell you about, we've spoken about it at a water conference in Bulgaria a few years ago, and I presented it at a Tesla Tech conference in New Mexico a couple of years ago. Because, and I'll take this example to demonstrate the principle, Jason Corbelli was talking about carbon nanotubes the other day, which is one of the interesting sort of technological phenomena that we've been enjoying the development of. And in our first evolution of the crystal cells, we were creating carbon nanotubulets which contain water molecules. And of course we know water's part of the key to the bigger picture, right? It's one of those beautiful synergistic elements that is able to transmute, transduce energy concepts between different realms, and you know all the magical properties from Emoto's work and so on, right? And consciousness work. So, and this was why it was interesting at the water conference, because even though we're talking energy here, an extraction of energy from the vacuum, water was one of the key components in the building blocks of that relationship, which is just, when you just consider the concept and how we are with water, it's a beautiful link, and it seems such a natural connection. So you know, really resonate with that connection. So these lovely little water molecules are trapped in they're having a little party in the carbon nanotubes, right? And they're all dancing around, and this has been observed. And Jerry Pollack in Washington University has done a lot of work on this kind of thing. And in fact, we do communicate with him. It was his conference that we were invited to speak at. Marcus was. And so these lovely little guys, they're all buzzing around in the carbon nanotubes. And why are they buzzing? Because they are exchanging energy through the principle of condensation of energetics through virtual particles being transmuted into an energetic vibration in a synergistic coupled resonance with the fluctuations of the quantum vacuum. Water seems to have this. and when you put it in the right compartment, in the right lattice structure, it can resonate. And then if you can entrain the ions that are imparted through this process, and then sort of polarize them into a unified force, which we have done through the crystal technology. When I talk crystals, I'm not talking quartz crystals. We have a certain compound with various materials that we make the cells with, and the carbon nanotubes are embedded, and so we create a relationship chain which allows these fluctuations to manifest in the release of ions and then electrons and create a current.
Wow.
So that's the crystal cell technology version 1. Version 2, my team in which we're equal parts, and my team is our team in Seattle. We supported Marcus for a couple of years with the version 1, and then we found some private funding from Florida. Wonderful bunch of guys, and they invested personal funds into this, which is great. Thank you, universe, because it allows us not to be trapped within any politics of the financial politics of that whole system. Can get a bit drudgery.
That's when you start to lose the vision, isn't it? That's when you start to be dictated to, I guess.
Yes.
When people start to put money in and say, we have these controls, we want this, we want that.
Yeah.
To have that financial freedom to go and explore these ideas and to do what it is that you want to do, can really create that new paradigm, kind of.
And it's cooperative support rather than expectation and demand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, that's more in alignment with our philosophy and our approach and where we're at as a team. So that's again a gift, and one the sort of patriarch of the team there, the private investment team, Gilliland, he's super successful. He's widely known in the business world across America. He's done a lot of big things, and he's very connected to the Dalai Lama and their science team. And so
the Dalai Lama has a science team.
So when we get to the certain the next stage of development manifest, which we expect will be within the next couple of quarters this year, and we have the second stage of the technology to demonstrate. RIP will be setting it up for us to introduce it to them, and of course from that heart-oriented platform we can then also launch this, because there's I had a discussion with somebody yesterday about the whole patenting concept.
Here we go with Tesla.
Well, as you know, it's a multifaceted. It's a dangerous world, the patent world, particularly in America.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should chuck the baby out with the bathwater in a sense of let's open source, let's not do patents. I personally, and as a team, we stand in the middle ground, because I strongly believe there's because it's all interwoven with our evolution. As I was saying, we have a certain responsibility with bringing these technologies to the world and the public, to shepherd it for distribution and integration in a holistic fashion.
So it goes into the community in the right manner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, you see, if you're injecting these game-changing approaches and technology into the system, obviously you get a lot of resistance.
I'm about to say that.
I'm sure we're not preaching to the choir, so we don't need to go into that. I think it's understood. And I've forgot. Oh, patents, yes. So I do believe in patents in a safe way, and in Germany we've done the first stage of patenting, but also you can do that as the first stage, but you need to protect the integrity of the technology so it doesn't get bastardized as it emerges. It's like your daughter, you have to shepherd her in the best possible way that you know how until she's mature enough to go to the prom and launch into adult life. Well, it's kind of the same with the technology, so there's a responsibility that goes with it. So even though you might follow the patent source just to protect it and maintain the integrity of the IP at the beginning,
getting that idea,
it doesn't mean you can't open source it in the end. All that means is that you don't start creating conflict and introducing, I want loads of cash for my idea.
Yeah, it's about making sure that product gets to the market undiluted.
Yes,
so it's not split up into 100 different ways and different ideas and different formats.
Exactly.
Mark, thanks for speaking to me.
My pleasure.
I feel like I've just met a man who's likely to change the world with his team.
Well, I think we're all here to change the world. You know, as long as we do our little bit,
you know that.
As long as we do a bit and we stay focused and integral, and it'll happen.
Good, man. I love and I love where you're coming from with it as well. I really do.
Too.
I love where you're coming from. It's like it's like business with conscience, you know, and that's really
It has
cool.
to be. That's the new paradigm. That's where we have to go. It doesn't matter if we're talking about technology or water. There's a lot of stuff we haven't gone into, and maybe another time. But
definitely, we'll have to do that later again. Actually, definitely. Thanks very much for tuning in then to heaventoearth.com. You can hear more fabulous interviews like Mark that we've just spoken to on the website. Go and check it out, and you can also cruise Croatia with us as well. A beautiful exclusive holiday.
Asylum.
We're here for Contact in the Desert for the next 2 or 3 days. In fact, it goes all the way through till Monday, doesn't it, James?
Yeah, it does.
It does. I'm joined by James Gilliland, is it?
Yes.
Pleased to meet you, James. How are you? James, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what you do. We've just been having a brief chat off camera, haven't we? You've had a fascinating story that's led you to this.
Yeah. Oh God, it goes back to childhood actually.
Okay.
So I had a lot of childhood experiences, and even my family before that. My grandmother, they lived in New Mexico, and they're involved with the first responders on the crash there and everything. So it's like, and my dad's always had contact. And he'd pull us over as kids and point up and said, "Look at the ships," you know, and show us ships. So it's been kind of a lifelong thing. We were raised in Apple Valley, California, where all the not too far from here, you know, where George Van Tassel, all those guys were doing stuff. Ralph Ring and everybody else. So
what was your earliest experience then?
My earliest?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. I think probably around 6 years old.
Oh, okay. So literally a lifelong then. Lifelong
yeah, at 6 years old, I came to this back door. We had a huge house, and we were on my brother and I had this room in the back, and my dad came in and I was screwing the door shut. I was putting big screws to the door. And he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm keeping them out." You know? And,
keeping them out?
Yeah. And it's, you know, screws are highly overrated as far as keeping those guys out.
I'm guessing they could just take the screws out whenever they felt like it.
Or just go through the wall. You know?
But this, I don't even need, just pass straight through the wall. But I'm guessing you felt that kept you safe. I guess you were scared then as a kid from some of these contacts.
Well, you know, they were benevolent. The contacts I'd had were benevolent, but I didn't understand them. And then I had the other guys messing with me too at the same time. So a lot of times you have both things going on. You have the really cool benevolent stuff, and then you have the other guys trying to shut it down, you know, and stop it.
So I'm guessing as a young person then this was hugely overwhelming for you.
Yeah, it was. But the whole time I always had guidance, and I had beings that were guiding me, and I used to go up on these big granite boulders and I'd sit and meditate, and they'd start talking to me. And as a kid I was having contact, and they'd explain to me what was going on and help me depersonalize, you know, family issues and things like that, and I come back with a whole different view of things.
So how would that come through to you? Would you see it in your mind? Would you see ships in the sky? Would you be taken aboard?
We'd see ships, and sometimes I was taken aboard, but we'd see ships in the sky quite a bit, and then usually it's all telepathic.
So, okay, so you had like a really strange near-death experience, didn't you? Tell us a little bit about that, James.
I was out body surfing, and these sneaker waves came in, about 27-foot tall sneaker waves.
Wow.
Just
27 feet.
Yeah, I cleared the whole jetty out and everything. And at the time, I was like, you know, I was captain of the water polo team and on the swim team, and I thought I was bulletproof out there.
So you were a strong swimmer.
Yeah. Oh, and I was like totally humbled by these waves, and there's nowhere to go. I mean, they sucked all the water out, and when they hit you, they just pounded. And so it knocked all the wind out of me, and then after the third wave hit, I just gave up, and I went through the tunnel that everybody talks about.
So I'm guessing this was oxygen deprivation. You were beginning to, I guess, drown and actually start to die. So explain to us a little bit about the tunnel then. What happened?
Well, I went through this tunnel, and there's all these levels, and I didn't stop to talk, which is really important. And I went towards this golden light, and a lot of people don't go to the light, go to the golden light, and don't stop, you know. But I ended up in this plane of bliss where I was so blissed out. I experienced the most pure, unconditional love and joy and security beyond words. And I had a voice talking to me back and forth. So you're a light being, but there's a greater conscious and energy surrounding you that you can communicate. So you're unique, yet you're one at the same time.
It's knowing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and then you have this direct knowing, and you have this conversation going back and forth. And the first thing I asked was, how can I stay? How can I stay here?
It's not your time.
Yeah,
Let's go back.
Yeah, and it came back to me and said, I never told one of my children when to come or go. That's free will.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, and I go, well, how can I earn the right to stay? And it came back to me and said, you cannot earn what is given freely and unconditionally.
Oh,
you know?
wow.
So I go, wait a second, you know, I was taught about this, you know, bearded God with this laptop that's taking notes.
With a laptop?
With a lightning bolt. You know,
I've never seen that in the Bible.
Yeah, that's gonna crucify me, you know, and, you know, I had all those programs. And I had to let go of all that.
Yeah, this is the programming, I guess, from life and from religion,
and
what
all that
we,
other
you know, what we're
stuff,
given,
yeah.
what we're told.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different experience.
This whole
isn't it?
duality, heaven, hell, that's it. You know,
Yeah.
there's so many levels, and you know that it's so far beyond that. But I had to like transcend all that.
Did they give you a download?
Oh,
would
yeah.
you say?
Yeah.
And did you understand the download when you got it as well? Because
No.
I met some light beings through an accidental astral travel.
Yeah.
And I actually kind of meditated and left and met these two light beings. And they asked me, they kind of took me through the cosmos. And they kind of stopped by this planet of like these sort of 12 rotating energetic fields.
Wow.
And I was kind of hovering above it, and they said, do you want to carry on or do you want to ask some questions? And I stupidly sort of floated over and went, show me!
Yeah.
Like this. And then I kind of descended through the planet and had this huge download. Started writing things about quantum physics that I don't understand, black holes, the nature of reality. It's much more intuitive within me now. It's like
Yeah.
knowledge is in there, but I don't know how to access it. Is that a similar experience for you?
Yeah, I get constant downloads, and I find out the information comes when I need it.
Yes.
And so they're always downloading information, and you go, where'd that come from? You know, and then you say it, and you go, I don't even know where that came from. So.
Do you find yourself intuitively understanding certain elements of the cosmos, of science, of technology,
Yeah.
of space, of
Yeah.
religion, of faith, all those sorts of stuff?
I was working with this guy. He's got like 9 PhDs. He's a
Whoa.
German biophysicist, and I won't mention his name because he's very high up there. But he has like the free energy technology.
Okay.
You know, he has devices with 9 coils, and each coil puts out 25,000 watts. It's crazy stuff.
Sounds very
Anti-gravity,
similar to...
counter-gravity, everything.
Yeah, Victor
Yeah.
Schauberger.
Yeah, way beyond that.
Way
He's
beyond
like,
that.
yeah,
From
yeah.
my country, we interviewed this guy on my radio show. What was his name now? Jeez. The British guy with the SEG, Professor John Searle.
Oh yeah,
As well, we
yeah.
interviewed John Searle. So this kind
Similar,
of technology
yeah.
are way beyond that.
It'd be even beyond that.
Wow.
But he had, you know, all this stuff, and I was looking at the chips, you know, that I probably shouldn't be talking about this, but I know he showed me the chips that run these things, and these Syrian beings, these feline beings, appeared to him and put the chip in his hand and gave it to him, and he said, "There's no way you could understand this technology. It has to come to you. You're not going to get it through books or through book learning or schools or things like that." And he showed me the chip, and I was looking at this chip, and I go, holy smokes, there's all this sacred geometry.
Oh, wow.
There's crystals, there's all these things lined up in, looked like amber. And it was all natural, and that was the device that tapped the 0 point that ran the motors, you know, that ran all the motors and everything. And it was just things like that that I just kept being shown over and over again. And when I looked at it, I understood it, but I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain it to somebody else.
Yes.
But I was sitting there with Walter Rosenthal and all these, he's a rocket scientist, all these NASA guys and everything. They actually went in there, and he took the device and he says, if you can figure it out, I'll give it to you. You can have it.
Whoa.
And I had to sit and watch these guys so they didn't steal it, you know. But they never figured it out.
They never figured it out?
No, they're in there for days, took it all apart, put it back together. They could not understand it. They couldn't figure it out. Because it's not here. It's not science you're going to learn here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a spiritual knowledge that comes to you to understand it.
Do you think that is the way to understand this phenomenon? Do you think that that's the way that we can really begin to unlock it?
It is.
And that's how we maybe understand the science. And is that maybe what they're doing secretly in the government then? Are they trying to understand this in a level?
Yeah, they're trying. But the thing is, they're still wrapped up in the ego and personal gain and all that other stuff, and so they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And when you really get into the higher dimensional stuff, you have to rise to the occasion spiritually. And to them, none of this stuff exists because they can't access it. And they're working on low-level stuff, you know, with greys and reptilians and back engineering and stuff like that.
Trying to understand the nuts and bolts, the actual working
yeah.
of the technology rather than the spiritual enlightenment that comes with the technology,
Exactly.
I suppose.
You know, the greatest technology is enlightenment, because you can take your body up the vibrational continuum and go through all the dimensions. They can only go to where they can engage matter, you know, with
the nuts and
physical
bolts.
objects and things like that, and they're just starting to touch on being able to raise frequencies and jump into other dimensions. But the thing is, you can't. Some of these other dimensions you can't get into if you're unconscious. You can't function.
So you've got to be a certain vibrational level, a certain amount of understanding and enlightenment in order to access these other realms as well. So technically, we don't even need, let's say, the UFO technology in order to travel the cosmos. Can we do that with our consciousness?
Exactly. Yeah. And I've talked to like Michio Kaku and these other guys, and they're saying there's not enough Planck energy to take a physical object, to the next dimension and things like that. And I said, well, why are you taking a physical object? You're a multidimensional being, and you have an energy body, a light body, and you have bodies all the way back to the source. Just rising consciousness, and you can go anywhere and
take anything with you that you wish. I guess you can manifest anything that's there.
Yeah, so the 0 point is right here in every individual. We have all the Planck energy we need once we access that.
So you think we're quantumly entangled with the universe? Our consciousness is in some way quantumly entangled. I mean, if you've met these light beings as I did, the first overriding thing that I sensed as I began to descend through the planet was there is no difference. There is no difference between anything. We look at, the differences between you and I.
Yeah.
We look at the differences from an Earth-based perspective between us and the trees, us and the camera, whatever it is, us and the people at home. And what I actually learned in that instance was there is no difference whatsoever. It's like trying to sort of, I guess, separate the cells in the fingertip.
Yeah,
they're all part of the same organism. Is that how you felt as well?
Yeah, and there's other things too. I noticed that like people talk about how advanced we are and everything else, and I said, well, I'm not any more advanced than this chair right here because if I wasn't vibrating at the same frequency as this chair, I'd fall right through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a part of me that's just on the same level as this chair. But on the inner level, I have all these other dimensions and aspects to it. So it's all about bending inward and going within. And like you're saying, there's a unified field and we all exist within it.
Yeah.
These guys just have more access.
Yes.
They access more of the unified field of consciousness, and they use that. And that's the only difference, is that we're locked into this body and this personality, and people that watch TV and things like that, you're programmed, with this is who you are, and you should be very afraid, and the terrorist this, and all that, that's all locking you in this 3D world, which is what they want to keep you in.
Yeah.
But you have to eventually you have to throw your TV out the window, or watch enlightened shows that take you in the right direction.
Do you believe our natural form then is energy, and that we choose almost this earthly 3D existence, this physical material existence?
I think everything is energy. It's like, there's the continuum. It goes from consciousness to light to energy to mass.
Right.
If you raise the mass frequency up, it's going to become energy. If you raise the energy, it's becoming light. If you raise the light up, it's going to become consciousness. So in the real beginning, or wherever if there is a beginning, because there is no time on those levels, everything begins in consciousness, and then it drops down through the continuum
as it begins to condense.
Yeah,
I guess.
exactly.
It becomes much more solid in this material form.
And as what's happening right now is the whole Earth is changing frequency. And so we're rising in frequency, and so we're becoming less dense physical, and we can't hold on to the old programs of greed and separation and tyranny. Yeah. All those programs have an energy to it that's no longer frequency specific to the evolution of the Earth, So
do you believe there's a global consciousness shift then? Do you believe that this planet is ascending in some way? And are events like this contact important?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's measurable. Even NASA's measuring it. We're moving through a highly energized place in space right now. Everything is responding to it. The other planets are going through atmospheric changes and all things like that. Global warming isn't from SUVs. It's a much bigger picture that's going on. Although we do need to bring the free energy out and get rid of this gas belching program.
Yes.
But it's so much bigger than that. But we're going through this huge shift in frequency. And we have to become frequency specific. We have to go along with this shift if we're going to stay here. If we hold on to the old frequencies, we're going to implode. And that's what's happened to the tyrants. The tyrants are imploding. Their world is folding in on itself.
I guess like a dam then, in many respects. We're trying to hold that. If you try and hold that back, and ultimately there's too much pressure, that dam will crack and it will be destroyed. But if you actually open the sluice gate and allow it to flow through, then we can kind of take control
the more
of it.
they try to suppress things, the more pressure builds up, and then eventually it's just going to. And so this is an unstoppable force that's coming in. No man can stop it. It's beyond that.
And I guess all of the people that are connected to the work that you do, the work that I do, and the people that are here this weekend, they all kind of feel that I guess, in many respects, this kind of momentum that's building, you know, this change that's happening around the world for so many different people. I mean, the fact that I'm even here today talking to you is as a result of those things taking place in my life, you know. This is what led me to this sort of strange place in a far off country, you know. So, and of course I'm delighted to be here because it looks amazing. Take me then, James, back to your, I guess, your near-death experience. What did that teach you and how was that important?
Well, I think after that, it's like kind of everything fell away, you know, all the old programs just fell away. And I just started seeing God in everyone and everything, you know. Not to be a Bible thumper, I'm not. I'm more of an experiencer. But it gave me a whole different perspective. And I started seeing humanity as the higher dimensional beings see us, as the forgotten gods. And we forgot who we are. And that was my program, is to kind of awaken people to your true nature. You know, you're not this meat suit, you know, you're not this body and this personality, and don't get hung up on your culture or your religion or anything else. This transcends all of that, and that you're a spiritual being that came from source, you know, having an experience down here.
So I'm guessing, because like my astral travel was very similar to that in the sense that I came back with this understanding of a much wider cosmos, a much wider universe and consciousness, you know. And I guess you kind of come back to this 3D reality and you realise that how insignificant or small a part that is of the great whole, you know.
Yeah. Well, there's one time I was, you know, I was in a relationship and it was going bad, and
we've all been there, James.
Yeah. And this woman I was dating at the time, she's going, you know, I like this guy in this band. I think I'm going to date this guy in this band. And I'm going like this, and I'm really kind of dealing with that and work and everything. And next thing you know, I pulled out of my body and I go all the way out into space, and I look back and the Earth's like this little pinhead. And Ezekiel, this being I work with, was the one that did that. And he said, "This is who you are." He goes, "There are your problems."
All the way down there.
Yeah, those little pinhead, that's your problems, and this is who you are. And I came back and it was gone. I had no energy attachment to it. All of it just went away. And when I came back, I was so blissed out, and I was going out to dinner with her, and she started doing her thing again. I go, "Sounds great, you know, as you wish. I hope you have a good time with that." And I wish she wasn't getting any reaction out of it or anything. And I said, you know, and finally I said, you know, I think it's time, you know, that we kind of do our own thing and, you know, have a nice life, you know. And
that's cool.
And dropped her off, and that was it. But, you know, it's kind of interesting, but I lost all attachment and any of the pain or any of the need for acceptance, for all that stuff was gone. You know?
It's a nice message, isn't it? Because that's exactly what you were talking about that lower vibration, I guess, being on planet Earth, thinking I need this certain car, I need to watch American Gladiators, or, or America's Got Talent, or X Factor, whatever it is, you know. And people are trapped very much in these sort of lives where they think that existence is the be all and end all. And what you're actually explaining there is, like, say you disappear out into space, look back at Earth and realise that everything is kind of not as important as you thought, or what actually is important to the world.
Exactly.
I guess.
Yeah.
So,
and all the other stuff just the same thing. When I had the near-death experience, I was in commercial real estate. I had my own company. I had people working for me. You know, I was a member of the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce and all that stuff. You know, and when I had the near-death experience, I hid out in the redwoods because I couldn't handle the energy. I went back. I go, oh no! I gotta get out of here. I can't handle this. And I couldn't, because I was. People would say one thing, think something else, and feel something. I was getting all three from them. Yeah. And I was so blown wide open. I was just going, I can't be here. This is a predatory situation. There's no love here. There's no joy. I'm out of here. And I gave up everything, and I went and lived in the redwoods, and it was the best thing I ever did.
I was about to say, never felt happier.
No, it was great. It was awesome.
So tell me about ESETI. Tell me, this is the Enlightened Contact of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Yeah. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay. So what is this? And
basically, what happened is, I noticed that in the UFO field, you know, everybody was just running around trying to prove UFOs exist, and nuts and bolts and things like that. And what happened is, I was on a real spiritual experience, and I was studying with yogis and lamas and all these things, and learning all these process-oriented therapies, and then finally I was doing all-day meditation, and these beings started talking to me, you know, and telepathically, really loving beings, and they're really concerned about, you know, the consciousness on the earth and the environment and things like that. And so I'm going, what level are you coming from, you know? Like, I was trying to find out what dimension these beings were coming from. And they said, well, actually, we're coming from a ship, you know, and I'm just going, oh, man. I said, all right. So now I have to incorporate this with the higher dimension, the masters and everything else, that some of the masters we think we're talking to could be a Palladian, you know, or from the Orion Council of Light, or Andromedan, or Syrian, you know. So from then on, it was just a huge download of all this information, all the different beings. I kept meeting the different groups and the different beings, and it just kept going on. So I realized that, you know, we have this duality thinking that there's God and the devil, and there's heaven and hell, and everything else, and it's such a small piece of what's really going on. But you know, but then I started realizing, you know, sometimes, you know, heaven may not be, you know, clouds and a harp, you know.
The way
it might be a starship. It might be a light ship, you know. Yeah. You might end up going back to your people, you know, and so it's just a whole learning experience from then on out.
So was ESETI an exploration of that then? Was it about bringing people together to explore these alternate dimensions, these different alien races, these contacts, and what these messages actually mean?
Yeah, and it's all about doing it through enlightenment. You know, when you process your stuff, you know, get rid of your baggage, your frequencies go up. When you rise in frequencies, they find you. They'll contact you. Yeah. So there's no purposeful good, you know, in contacting, you know, a muggle, you know, or whatever, you know, because they're just doing it. They don't care, you know. They're going to twist your message or whatever. Yeah. But they're looking for people that are awake, that are enlightened, that aren't going to twist their message for some religious program or monetary program or things like that. And that's what I found, is that it's all about releasing the past, cleaning up the baggage, rising to the occasion, and then you have your contact. And you can have contact with lower level ones, but you best to avoid some of those. They're not your highest and best good.
I was going to say, do you think some people are intuitively in tune with this sort of stuff? Do you think some people are alive to this? Because I've had a number of experiences like that, but for the early part of my life, I thought my out-of-body experiences were bad dreams, you know. I think that my astral travel was very overwhelming. It was very difficult to take. They're contacting us right now. I guess this is a Pleiadian, is it? Calling in. Have they got your phone number, James?
No, this is the guy that's trying to get me to pay $1 bazillion to fix my computer.
Ah, so these earthly problems are still existing then?
Yeah, I had, I just got hacked big time by that virus that, that ransom and all the other stuff. And when they went into my computer to repair it, they go, you know what? They go, you have every alphabet agency, every Interpol, everything on the planet has been into your computer, and so it's. I don't think it's fixable now. So I've got to.
So I mean, coming back to that point, do you think then that there are people who are awake, who are enlightened, but are terrified? Do you think that not only is your work about allowing those people who are able to contact, but also reassuring the ones that are terrified by this world that they don't understand? You know, because that was certainly how I grew up. I was very much accidentally in tune with this sort of stuff, and I think I shut myself off it for many years because out of pure fear. It's only my journeys to places like this, speaking to people like yourself, the radio show that I do, that's allowed, let's say, that I guess the evidence to kind of fall where it falls, and for me to come to much more of a kind of cool place about it. So is it important that you awaken other people as well as the ones that are already awake?
Yeah, definitely. Well, what I found out too is that we have an old saying, just because you're dead doesn't mean you're enlightened, and just because you're an ET doesn't mean you're benevolent, you know, because there are low-level contacts you don't want to do, and just as there are certain beings, you really have to learn to heal unseen negative influences and maintain your own self-authority, and there are tools and techniques that go along with this process. So what we do is we teach people how to clear their energies, how to stay in their own fields, how to sever any psychic bonds or anything that's not benevolent. And once you learn these tools, you can go anywhere.
Wow. I so need to come and see you.
Yeah.
I so need to come and see you.
You can really get your butt kicked if you don't have these tools.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And that happened to me. I experienced almost every dark thing you could came at me, and each time I got on top of it, and I learned more tools, and I made bigger contacts or higher contacts. And the most amazing thing recently was I started contacting these feline beings. And they're about 17-foot tall beings. I found out they were the ancient ones, the protectors of the gods. And so when they came in, everything just was done, you know. It's like they started cleaning house, you know. So
and I guess, like I say, that is massively overwhelming. My experiences when I grew up, and like I said, I had these out-of-body experiences that I didn't understand. I learned later on in my life that I actually live on top of a ley line. Do you believe that these earth energies play a role in this? Do you believe that there's something like the Persinger and Corin God helmet, that magnetic fields actually induce certain things? Do you believe they are, like, say, portals to other dimensions or places of activation? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we have, on the ranch, we have 2 ley lines that cross, and some people call them Michael lines or dragon lines, and they cross. And you can see this one ley line is like an orb highway. There's like a bazillion orbs cruising on this ley line, and you can film them with, if you have night vision and ultraviolet. But and we have that technology there. But the definitely has a part to play in that. And then the mountain that we sit in front of, there's a door to the inner earth that opens up, and ships come out of there, and we have those on film too. Ships coming out of the mountain, so everything's going on there. It's like not just one thing.
Now, speaking of this, I know a very famous gentleman who lives not far away from where I live in England. His name is Robbie Williams. Many people talk about him in the sense that he's a pop star. He's well known in the States. He's well known, of course, in the UK, around Europe and stuff like this. I've seen a documentary with Robbie Williams where he visits this. Is this where he visited? Was it you that he visited? Yeah. Because I remember this scene where you're sitting on the veranda and you're looking out over the back, and he has these UFO contacts, doesn't he? And this, you're talking about this idea about the UFOs coming out of the mountain and stuff. So you've had some famous people there. You've had Danny Dyer, you've had Robbie Williams. Tell me about those guys.
They're great. I mean, they had a major awakening when they came there, and really opened them up to continue in the work that they're doing. But like Danny Dyer was funny because he goes, I'm on UFO overload, you know. he goes, I've been all over the world, I haven't seen anything, I come here and I'm on UFO overload.
Yeah, and it's all just coming out the sky.
They kept coming in, they're powering up and pulsing, you know, people and everything. So yeah, it's a lot of people, almost everybody in the field of ufology that is really working on the right side of the fence has been there. Has been to the ranch.
So, I mean, how did it transform Danny Dyer? How, you know, did he go away thinking, oh my God, I can't believe this, you know, I've had all my kind of questions answered? Yeah. Did he have a load more questions? Was he enlightened or just terrified? I'm guessing he wasn't terrified.
He was, at the end he said, you know, he goes, there's a lot of skeptics out there, you know, there's a lot of people saying these are satellites and everything else. And he goes, I've seen it. He goes, to me, these are UFOs, you know, and he goes, I don't have any doubt, you know, whatsoever. So it was a huge transformation for him, and we, you know, we to satisfy the intellectual side or the truth side, you know, we had the Heavens Above and J Tracker right there, and said, look, it's not a satellite. This is not. There's no running lights. There's no strobes on this thing. It's not. It's an unknown. You know, it's not in the.
And I guess you're pretty well versed at this now as well, as am I when I see anything in the sky. First thing, can I hear an engine? Can I see any lights on it, you know, strobe lights on it? Secondly, if I can't see those things, what else is it? That sort of stuff, you know. So, so you go through that list straight away, don't you? You go straight away, I know this is an anomalous object, particularly if you're monitoring, I guess, the satellites and stuff like this as well.
Yeah, and you can feel consciously when they come in. Like, I know when the Pleiadians are coming in because the birds start singing at night.
Oh, wow.
And all the coyotes start going off and the animals respond to it. And you feel it. You feel all giddy. You feel this real hard energy. And I go, oh, they're here, you know, and all of a sudden, boom, they just appear, you know, and they fly right over the ranch.
That's amazing. James, I think we've run out of time, but thanks ever so much for speaking to me on Heaven to Earth.
Great.
Really cool. We'd love to see you on one of the cruises as well in the future as well. And I need to go and see this ranch. I need to go and see it. Dude, thanks so much for speaking
definitely
to me.
Come up and see us.
Thank you very much.
Have your own experience.
Is there anything? Oh, absolutely. Is there anything you'd like to say to the guys at home as well before we leave? Any messages that you've got to add on?
Just, you know, stay in the heart and watch the skies.
Yes!
It's happening.
Stay in the heart and watch the skies.
Yeah.
Wicked.
Definitely. All right, thank you.
James, thank you very much.